State and local law enforcement agencies have issued reports warning of a, quote, highly sensitive and politically charged threat environment in the wake of the leaked Supreme Court draft opinion on abortion rights. Police and law enforcement officers are on high alert now across the nation. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us now for more. Catherine, what do these reports say about the United States and its assessment of the security threats?
Bob, we're talking about two products here. One is called an intelligence note. The other is called a situational awareness bulletin. Both are designed to give local and state law enforcement maximum visibility on the current threat environment. And if there is a common theme that we saw arise from these bulletins, it was really put best by one from the National Capital Region that reads in part, events will remain highly sensitive and politically charged in nature in the near term. And some of these bulletins we reviewed here at CBS News, Maryland, New Jersey, as well as Florida, they speak to the idea that there could be flashpoints and that we could see the crossing of a threshold to violence or criminal activity in this threat environment essentially very quickly, Bob.
What kind of threats are detailed in these reports? Is it just people walking outside justices' homes? Is it more comprehensive? What have you learned?
Well, it's a little more sophisticated. It breaks down into three categories or buckets. The first is what I'll call foreign nation state actors. So think of Iran, China, and Russia. These are nations, adversaries of the United States who use information warfare to precipitate violence, to capitalize on the current heightened threat environment. The second would be foreign and domestic extremists, sort of the same MO. They're trying to hijack the current threat environment to their own ends. And then the last, and I would argue the most concerning to law enforcement, is the lone actor category. These are individuals who are not part of a broad conspiracy. They make a decision to act quickly. And because they're not communicating with others, it's that much harder for law enforcement to intervene and thwart the plots that they may have lined up in the future.
Are we seeing a difference between what's playing out in person, perhaps on camera, and what's playing out on the internet?
That's a very important point, Bob, but we absolutely are. Think of it as two tiers. This physical world tier where we're seeing this heightened security around the Supreme Court itself here in Washington, the demonstrations at the homes of justices in the Washington area. And then we've also got this virtual battlefield, if you will, where these bulletins speak to social media, encrypted messaging, other platforms where individuals have these implied threats of violence. Here we see in the bulletins discussion of targeting groups that are pro-life, targeting houses of worship, for example. And the question for law enforcement is, when does this cross a threshold from protected activity that we hold very sacred here in the United States to something that's crossing a threshold to precipitating or being a catalyst to violence in the physical world?
Catherine, I used to see the late Justice Ginsburg around D.C. being very social. She would have a low-key presence in terms of her U.S. Marshal protection. Has that changed in the wake of this intelligence and these threats?
I would say, based on my own reporting here at CBS News, that we've seen an escalation in the security surrounding the Supreme Court justices, not just more recently with the leaking of this draft, but I would argue that it really began well over a year ago. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but I've seen this myself in person, the kinds of security they may have in the background when they're doing events. So it speaks to an environment which really began long before the beginning of this month, but I would argue began sort of in that wake of January 6th.
Catherine, on Saturday, Planned Parenthood, the Women's March, and other abortion rights advocates are planning a rally near the Washington Monument. Is there a security plan for those protests?
Well, what we can say about it at this point is they've got a park permit, and at this point they're expecting upwards of 15,000 people in this march. What I know from my own experience is that there will be some type of plan in place to create physical distancing between this group and any counter-protesters. One of my big takeaways from the reporting we've done the last few days, Bob, is that the local and state authorities, especially here in the National Capital Region, which is home to the Supreme Court, have been very forward-leaning in their assessment of what may happen in the coming weeks. We've seen some engagement with Homeland Security and the FBI through these fusion centers. These are centers that were set up after 9/11 to be forward-leaning with intelligence gathering, but the bulletins really suggest that local and state authorities are forward-leaning and anticipating how they can kind of disrupt violence if it reaches that point.
Catherine Herridge, thank you so much for your reporting and your time.
You're welcome.